Well, good evening, Mr. King of Solar Cleaning.
My brother, what's going on?
Happy Saturday to you.
It is a great Saturday.
Oh my goodness. Oh, I'm still actually, uh, I'm still vibing off of the conversation we had last night. I mean, we talked about so many impactful things within the renewable energy industry, and with you being who you are and with your reputation and mine, I knew that this would be kind of a perfect storm of the meeting of the minds. And
Absolutely.
I'm just glad to finally get you on a chat, and we can pick each other's brains and talk about some of the things that are innovative and some of the things that perturb us and everything in the middle.
Sounds good to me, brother.
So I think first off, why don't you introduce yourself and then I'll go next, and we can get into it.
All right, sure. My name is Deshawn Phillips. Um, I'm the owner, operator, and CEO of PJ Solar LLC, but it was PJ Solar Cleaning and Bird Proofing, and we primarily focus on solar care, or solar maintenance, which is solar panel cleaning and solar panel bird proofing. A little backstory: how I got started. I've had solar panels on my own residence for over 10 years. I went 5 years without cleaning it. I ended up getting a really big bill from the utilities company and found out that you have to clean these things and that they're supposed to be cleaned at least once a year per manufacturer's warranty. And, it just makes sense, that nothing's made free. You got to clean these things. So that's what got me started on my journey on cleaning these things. And coming up May of this year, it'll be 6 years in business.
That's fantastic. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
And I know that you and we've just started talking over the past week, but it really feels as though just in these few conversations we've had that we've shared kind of a lifetime of experience, and obviously the amount of synergy and the I guess the dynamics of what we've managed to accomplish in just a few short hours has been nothing short of awesome.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, for those out there who don't know me, my name is David Jones. I am the CEO and co founder of Lumina Energy. We are an energy as a service software company that focuses heavily on virtual power plant manufacturing. And very much like Deshawn here, I got my start as kind of a rude awakening. My origin story began when I was a pilot and I was traveling in Thailand, and I ran into a young boy on the street who was doing his homework in front of a 7-Eleven. And coming from Chicago, obviously that kind of struck me as odd, number one, because it's constantly cold here. And then number two, because you just don't see that because we don't have as, I guess, as big as an energy deficiency as you would find in other developing countries. So I actually got a chance to have a conversation with his parents. The kid's name was Shia, I believe, and Shia's parents they were very candid. They said we don't have an idea of when electricity will be on or off, and usually we only have them for 3 or 4 hour spurts, and after that it's completely unmeasurable. And I said to
Wow.
myself, I know I can fix this, not maybe not just by myself, but by pulling together a team and with some of these ideas that have just been collecting dust in my own bureau, we can bring that to life. And so that essentially started me on the road several years ago to pioneering virtual power plant technology.
Nice.
Yes. Um, so I know that we're supposed to have a couple of topics, but I figured we could just kind of go off the cuff and just talk about some of the things that you have coming up, and I'll talk about some of the cool stuff I'm working on.
Yeah, sure. So, right now in 2023, what we're focused on primarily is to really get it pioneered and just make it normalized like we had our discussion the other day, about solar care and solar maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, get it normalized where solar the solar sellers themselves are informing the client truthfully that these things are not maintenance free, and they're going to go require some kind of maintenance, but it's not nothing drastic, it's very minimal, and it's going to essentially pay for itself.
That's right.
So it's a no-brainer.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, it's just common sense that's not that common, and I spend my time um, trying to convince people to be doing things they should be doing. But that's the whole focus this year, is to try to spin that around and make it a normal, um, stuff that you should do, like spring cleaning or something like that. And it's
Sure.
normal thing that you should be doing, is house maintenance on your home, because these things actually make you money. You know,
Yeah.
that's what people are not realizing. Why it's so important and key to have solar, is because you're your own power company now. And like I was talking to you the other day, what are you going to do without power?
That's right.
You're going to have to pay for power until you die.
Mm-hmm.
So why not have solar? And then you're only going to pay for it for a certain amount of time. Now now you're getting free power.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of this, as we were saying the other day, has to do with developing a public narrative,
Mm,
because you can't really put much thought into something you didn't even know you needed to do. It's the same thing with any kind of mechanical device, even though
right.
there's no real mechanics behind solar panels, but you get what I'm saying. Uh,
Absolutely.
I mean, the idea that you have to get your oil changed on a car is a very good metaphor. You have to maintain these things, or otherwise they're not going to operate at their peak efficiency. And the the big issue with solar panels is, number one, it requires photovoltaics, so that solar energy requires square footage, and if you're not able to make if the solar energy, the UVA, UVB rays are not able to make contact with those solar cells, then it's not able to create any synthesis. It's not able to create any actual electrical current.
Exactly.
So, I mean, even when I'd first learned about you, I was a neophyte on the subject, and after talking with you, I've of course done some research, and I realized a lot of the things that you were saying should be more publicly available, and that's kind of the genesis of this conversation.
Hmm.
But I think also it was important to get on a stage or on a platform where two African Americans could talk about some of the inequities within the industry, some of the emerging technology, and of course the day-to-day operations that we normally deal with. Because I mean, and I hate to say it, but I've never really seen anything like this. And it's not to say that it doesn't exist, but a meeting of the minds of two minorities in America about something as nuanced as renewable energy is few and far between.
Especially with our community, and
Yeah.
it's sad.
Yes.
um I got on it. Like I said, I've had my panels for almost 11 years.
Hmm.
So I just knew, it just made sense, when the guy broke it down to me. And he was, he broke it down, and I learned that from him actually. He said, you know what? You want to break everything down to where a 5-year-old can understand it,
That's right.
because there will be no confusion
That's right.
with anybody. If you can't understand that, then, I mean, something's wrong.
Sure.
So I got it quick, and I'm like, man, I'm gonna be saving money, and he's right. I'm gonna have to pay for power the rest of my life. I'm gonna be saving, paying for power, and eventually I'm gonna pay him off and not have no bill. And I've been like that for years now, where I don't have no bill because I paid off my system a
That's
long
right.
time ago. So I'm in the, it's a total all win for me, and I want to provide that freedom for my community.
Sure.
That's what we're lacking. We're lacking our freedom. We're lacking the knowledge of knowing about it. They keep us excluded out from, you know, life changing stuff that could really, just think about it, Dave. If our community was so prevalent in solar, and we really cared about renewable energies, and not just what it do for the planet, just overall, what it can do for our community, how we can come up. Remember, like we was talking, 2 trillion.
That's
Last
right.
year was 1.6 trillion.
That's right.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
And
And we
then
don't need anybody.
on a global scale, we're also in the middle of a renewable energy smart city bubble that equates to about $20 trillion that is to be dispersed globally, um, from different countries, different sovereign nations that are investing heavily into their infrastructure, which I was fortunate enough to kind of get on that gravy train from the very beginning. But there's just so many opportunities out there, and that actually is one of the reasons why we decided to name this topic the solar energy triangle, because it really is a trifecta. There's a beginning, there's a middle, and an end
Mm,
to all of this. I think we the last time we'd spoken, I told you that I owned a renewable energy trade school, and at the very
yeah.
last day, and by the way, it was sponsored by Microsoft, so I want to once again give my thanks to them. One of the last topics that we really got a chance to deep dive on was entrepreneurship within that space,
Hmm.
and a lot of, well, not just entrepreneurship, but just monetization. So under, getting these kids to understand that you could become an entrepreneurial presence by starting your own company. You could become part of the corporate structure where you become a solar installer, energy auditor, etc. Or you could become an entrepreneur where you work with companies like ours and do inside sales or all kinds of things. And then there's also a number of different verticals that have yet to be touched that I'm aware of. So, one thing that I realized in our communities we haven't really discussed is the disposal of solar panels.
Big, big, big.
That's
Yeah,
huge.
it's
That is
huge.
huge.
And that's what people are. I hear a lot of proponents, talk a lot of stuff about that because they're all like, hey, you guys are saying that it's supposed to be good for the planet, but what about the disposals?
Hmm.
So that's a big thing too that I definitely wanted to dive more into and,
Yeah.
and and get into the recyclable end of that.
Absolutely. I know a little bit about it, and the more I research, the more interested I am in figuring out how we can monetize this on some level. But I mean, all of the materials that are used within solar panels are all recyclable. Silicon is most definitely recyclable. The aluminum framing is recyclable. The wires are all made of copper and plastic and rubber and so forth. All of these things can be reused and upcycled into either more solar panels or something completely different.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And you're talking about a product that is unlike most that are on the market, where it does have an incredibly long life cycle. I mean, if with proper maintenance, you're looking at around 25 to 30 years that these things can keep working for you and actually making you an energy generator. But at some point, they will have to be decommissioned. So
Absolutely.
at that point, I mean, it could easily, and I mean, I think the figures that I read, and I pulled this off the internet, the figures were something like $1,800 per panel to be removed and decommissioned, which, I mean, you're talking on average around 24 panels on a on a mid-sized house. That's actually pretty profitable.
Yeah, that's very profitable.
Hmm. I mean, I could be those numbers could be slightly skewed, so don't quote me on that. But either way, there is definitely a market for it, and now that there has been heavy emphasis and heavy investment into that sector, a lot of people are beginning to put their panels on houses, and some have had them for quite a while, which means that there's an opportunity already where you can go in and decommission
Mm,
rooftop solar. You
that
can
gives
also,
me an idea though, Dave, about a swap out maybe program.
yeah, oh yeah, I was just getting to that. You read my mind. Yes, please speak on it. Speak on it.
Well, it just makes sense, if the numbers ain't too skewed, I'm sure it's usually backed upon some kind of basis. So even if we go a little bit low and say the average of get about 1,500 per
Hmm.
panel, which is still pretty decent, um, on a 24 panel system, that's we're talking about good money here.
Yeah, no, we absolutely are.
that they
And
can take off of their system on
yes,
getting a new one. You know what I
yeah,
mean? So it's like it's a win-win.
there's a startup company right now, and I'm going to Google them real quick. So just give me a second. That are actually they're going to the desert. So usually around sub-Saharan Africa or other places with good sand quality, and they have a there's a type of machine that actually turns that material into silicon-based solar cells, like right then and there.
Wow.
So what I'm saying is, eventually, what's going to happen is that that type of startup, or that idea at least, will reduce the cost of solar panels by and large. You're talking there could easily be 60-70% decrease in how much it costs to actually produce those, which means cost of production goes down, and that those figures are then represented by how much the consumer would pay for them.
Absolutely. That's incredible that they're able to, you know what I mean, just right then and there. No big
Hmm.
factory, just
Hmm.
from nature. That's that's incredible when you think about it. The
Yeah.
technology behind that.
So it's actually, I just googled it. It's a type of container that turns it turns sand into silicon, and I'm looking for the name of it right now. It's called Mana, spelled Maana. And these shipping container like boxes, I'm just gonna read what the blurb says. It says, can produce solar panels using only sand and own produced electricity as inputs. The panels are produced with zero emissions. The box is called TerraBox. It's like a fully automated factory that can be transported to deserts to help produce renewable energy. That is awesome.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's something that the big elite is gonna want to definitely eventually trying to, what I mean, get their hands on, because it's like what? You're revolutionizing the market, you know what I mean? You're gonna cut us out.
yeah.
So
No,
that's
like the conversation that you and I had yesterday was pretty compelling, because we'd spoken earlier about how big industries always try to shoehorn themselves into a situation and create a monopoly.
hmm
And in this case, I don't think that'll ever really happen again. And the reason I say that is because we are very much headlong into the age of the startup. And with the age of the startup, we're able to be more agile, more mobile, and more flexible than any large company could ever be. The amount of time and regulation that it takes for a large company to do anything, I mean, it could easily it could be months, as opposed to having a startup team of 20 or less that can easily go out, seek funding, and then get off to the races and start making things happen. They're able to scale up. They're able um, to create more innovative ideas, and to what's the word, to I'm losing my train of thought. It's a term. Give me a second. What is the word? It's uh, geez. So essentially, what I'm trying to say is they're able um, to elaborate on an idea and go from the idea phase all the way to a prototype fairly quickly. Are you still there?
sorry, brother.
No worries.
Yeah, but go ahead and continue. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. So a long time ago, the way business models worked was you'd have to form a monopoly in order to eliminate all of your competition. But now that's not necessarily the case. If anything, the new model has become, let's let everyone create businesses, and then we take a small piece of each of those. So a good example of that would be Uber, right? So Uber is the largest taxi company on earth, but they don't actually own any taxis.
Crazy. They're a
um,
technology company, middleman.
yes, exactly. Becoming a middleman or creating a platform, that's what the new business model is going to be. And that way it becomes kind of direct to consumer. It becomes very easy to iterate on those ideas. That's the word I was looking for. So the iteration of those ideas and the networking of partnerships that helps companies to scale faster.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Hmm.
Um, what I did want to focus on though too is putting out information that a lot of people don't know about solar panel cleaning. Obviously, they think they're aware about the dirt and stuff and just being exposed to the elements 24/7, 365, and people got to realize that. I want to put ground stuff into people's head, that's common sense, that's easily to get. Like, look, these things are exposed to the elements 24/7, 365.
Hmm.
um the rain discussion is a big one, because that's a big, like, can I say, that's just a big misconception on solar panel care. Like we discussed, and I try to tell people all the time, I use a lot of car wash analogies, because it works great with solar panel care. And when you think about it, when you go get your car washed, do they just rinse it down? No, they
Absolutely
don't.
not.
They scrub it and use, some kind of an agent, but we don't use agents on panels, but you see what they have to do. So it's it's the same premise with solar panels. So you think the rain, which is not clean water, which I put out articles and blogs and reels showing like that's not clean water. At the top it was, but as it falls down into the it's collecting all the stuff that's in pollution that's in the atmosphere.
That's right.
So it may have start off clean in the clouds, but as it gets heavy and it drops down, because we know that's what precipitation is. The goes get up and get heavy and create clouds and get, like, what I mean, evaporates. What we learned in school. As it comes down, our atmosphere is so polluted that it's dirty water again.
That's right.
It's
Yeah.
dirty water again.
And something else to keep in mind is every t- every type of solar panel is not necessarily made equal. So naturally, there are several types of solar panels that have higher efficiency ratings or or lower efficiency ratings. Some of the glass that is used has special coatings on it or other
Hmm.
specific types of materials. And
Hmm.
then what's more is depending on which geographic region you live in, that makes your susceptibility of having dirty solar panels that much higher. So as you said, living in an arid region, living in a place like California and in Los Angeles, for instance, where there is heavy smog, there
Oh
are
God,
heavy
thank you,
there are
thank you,
heavy clouded particulates in the air that
thank
are
you.
constantly bombarding. There's very little rain. That really makes for a really bad kind of situation for us for solar panel owners.
Especially in LA. Heavily populated areas, and I haven't been to other heavily really populated areas that can do the research, but
Hmm.
LA for particular, Southern California in particular, it's just
Yeah.
absolutely atrocious. It doesn't matter if it rains. I love to do cleanings right after the rain, actually. I mean the day after.
Hmm.
Because I will wipe it and show you that my hands are black.
That's
See,
right.
that's what nobody talks about, is the smog and pollution.
Hmm.
I'm the only one that's talking about it in my industry. So I got the other guys wiping and showing stuff now and stuff, and probably people in our industries knowing about it, but they're not putting it out there like me, and they're not, exposing the information. Like, look, you're not supposed to be using any chemicals on top of solar panels.
That's
So we
right.
got a lot of detail companies out there now, like, oh yeah, or window cleaners, same thing. They'll get up there and be like, ah, yeah, I can clean your panels, no problem.
Hmm.
I'll knock it on out. And they're walking on panels. They're using chemicals. Let
Yes.
me tell you why it costs in the long run to, and you pay for what you get. Okay, a real professional is going to know that you're not supposed to use any chemicals on your solar panels, and this is what they don't know. I would say 99% of the solar panel cleaners don't even know that solar panels produce static electricity,
Yes.
the byproduct, all right? So it charges the dirt particles, and that's why it really sticks on there hard. So if you
Sure.
see at the bottom of solar panels that haven't been cleaned and stuff for a while, and then it does get the rain, and then give it a few weeks when the dirt hits and all that, it'll be looking white at the bottom of solar panels. Have you ever seen that before? Where
Yeah.
it's
Those are
dirty and it looks
streaks.
white. Well, people think that's hard water stains. That's partially from the rain sticking and stuff, but no, that's mainly from the static electricity.
Sure.
Okay, that's why you're not supposed to use any chemicals on solar panels. You're only supposed to use deionized water.
That's right.
Deionized water is non-conductive.
Hmm.
Okay, even regular water is could be partially conductive because of the particles, particulates in it. You know what I mean? So that's why you're supposed to use deionized water and deionized water only.
Yep.
It is the best way to clean any glass, whether a glass on your window or your solar panel. Glass is glass. It's the
That's right.
best way because there's no chemicals. It's gonna repel dirt. It's gonna look beautiful and shine. It's gonna be able to bring in the UV rays because it don't work on sunlight. People are not aware it works on UV rays.
That's right.
So that's why the smog, and I bring up the smog, and I'm want to pull my hair out talking about the smog, and they're like, "Why is this guy going so crazy about the smog?" Because your solar panels work on UV rays. So if you got a cloud of layer of black,
Hmm.
how is it going to penetrate themselves?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And then, I mean, just also with the various types of carbon pollution that exist, coming from coal, oil, natural gas, and so forth, that layer or those particulates in the air, they
Airplane
can
too. Airplane
airplanes, of
too.
course, yes, yes, they.
Ontario, in
Hmm.
heavily, Inglewood, any
Hmm.
places is next to airports, major airports. Oh my God, those
Yeah,
places are really, really bad with the black,
that's right.
um, because it's another layer of pollution.
And it's a constant bombardment of that pollution as well.
Uh,
So when you're talking about living near an airport, I mean, you have hundreds of planes that are constantly flying over you, and that's a gigaton of particulates, of parts per million, that are constantly flooding the atmosphere, which is obviously bad for your solar panels, but is also bad for you.
It's bad for you. That's why I wonder. I was like, look, they're charging people all this money to stay down here in Southern California, and they're breathing this stuff in. I show people, look, man, if this is on your panels, it's on your, it's everywhere,
Hmm.
and you're breathing this stuff in. They're charging you this money to breathe this stuff in.
But one thing I will say that I'm excited for is the advent of the electric plane. And being in the
Right.
aviation industry, I mean, we haven't really seen anything that has been kind of a breakthrough because of the big issue with battery pack density. That energy density, we still haven't quite solved it. But once we do get to a place where we can have what's called vertical takeoff and landing electric vehicles, I think that's going to help us not only to stave off climate change, but also to make air travel that much faster, that much more efficient.
Hmm.
Because number one, we'll be able to travel higher, we'll be able to travel faster, and it's very possible that eventually what will happen is we'll get supersonic or hypersonic jets that will be able to shuttle a person from say New York to London in just maybe 2 hours or less.
Wow.
Yeah, but have you? And this is just kind of future talk right now. But have you seen that there's a company right now who's working on creating kind of a floating fortress that never comes down, and it's using a an amalgam of renewable energy, nuclear reactor. I think there's one nuclear reactor and a couple of other methodologies, but this huge fortress is basically like a gigantic aircraft. It's like a floating fortress, like something from Sonic the Hedgehog or something out of a sci-fi novel. Have you heard about that?
No, I never heard about it. Wow.
Yeah, no,
Wow.
I think once these things come about, obviously there's a lot of dystopian values to it, but there's also some really cool things that could take place, like having airborne airports. So being able to take off from the substratosphere could be
Wow.
incredible. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Incredible.
But I think the way we're going to get there is by promoting and accelerating the adoption of renewable energy into the public space. Because right now, we have solar panels and they're basically the poster child,
Hmm.
but there's a lot of other cool technologies out there that we really have not even begun to scratch the surface on. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, so I'm just like those are some of the things that I'm really excited about. Also, I guess going back to solar panels themselves, have you heard about nano panels yet?
Heard a little bit about it on LinkedIn. I actually skimmed through an article and stuff, but I had to go. Haven't
Yeah.
heard much about it.
So it essentially it uses it's called nano solar cells or nano photovoltaics, and they improve the efficiency and the performance of traditional solar cells. So instead of having like an efficiency level of around 28 or between 25 and 28%, which is the typical
Hmm.
monocrystalline panel, these could have significantly higher. And even for combustible fuels, that level of efficiency is only about 30%. So the fact that these panels, these new ones that are coming out, have will be able to eventually triple or double that output, it could be something incredibly compelling.
Uh,
So yeah, it basically it enables the panels to absorb light over a wider range of the electromagnetic spectrum.
wow.
Yeah, and so they're also going to be flexible and more lightweight because, as you and I both know, solar panels are heavy as hell,
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
and it'll make them easier to install, easier to transport, and I think even more durable because
Wow.
if you drop a typical panel, they're usually going to shatter.
Yeah.
Yeah, so once that does come about, we're looking at
I'm
a
just thinking like, wow, that's mind blowing because from my part of the solar triangle, um, they're gonna even more need to be maintained. Even those
oh, absolutely,
doesn't matter, even
absolutely,
more,
yes, of course, of course.
even more.
Yes, and not to mention thin film solar panels. So I've actually done some research on that myself. Have you started working with those yet?
Um, Not really, but we did have some houses with like the built-in solar, and they're not like the traditional panels. Like they're
Mhm.
like I want to say the first few generations are like kind of how Tesla got the Tesla roofs.
Right,
They're integrated, and I
right.
think those are thin film solar panels actually.
Well, when I say thin film, I mean like they're about the width of a piece of paper.
Yeah.
So
Well, no, these
these
are not that. These are a little bit thicker, but
yes,
wow, that's thin.
these thin film solar cells, they basically look like stickers. And in the future, what will happen with enough time is these you'll basically be able to convert any window into a solar panel. So as you can imagine, like you
Oh,
said, there will be a lot more requirements and demand for your services.
oh yeah, and you know what? I seen actually a technology where they had a something similar to that, but they had a Venetian blind,
Oh
and
yes, 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 yes.
the Venetian blind was like a solar panel,
Hmm.
and it was taking the rays from the sun and converting it into power, and it was I was like, what? It,
That's right.
what? I mean, they're just thinking, what I mean? That's just genius.
Yeah.
You're still gonna have to have that window cleaned.
Hmm. Yeah. No
There's
matter what.
there's no getting around that part of it, and that's why I said it's the solar triangle.
Sure.
And I
And
don't care what they're saying. I can prove it every time.
yes.
You clean your house, right? You clean your car. You wash your butt. What? You don't wash your panels? Something that makes you money,
Hmm.
which is the only investment on your home that gives you dollar for dollar, return. Are you serious?
Yeah.
So you can do a high end upgrade on your bathroom and your kitchen. The max you're gonna get is 89% dollar for dollar.
That's right. That's right.
Wow.
Something else that I have not heard a lot of professionals talk about is solar heating. Have you serviced any of those solar heated panels yet?
Not really.
I'm
Uh,
really excited. So
I
I've
never.
already I've already started working on some designs for. Um, I guess the best way to explain it would be a solar heating system that runs an air conditioner. So by using solar collectors, they're usually mounted on a roof, like just rooftop
I've
solar.
seen them. I've seen them,
Yeah,
but I've
and
never
so
had a request to clean them. But I've seen them.
and the heated water it can be used for a whole. It can be used for a slew of purposes, like domestic hot water, swimming pool, or even space heating.
Hmm. Now
But
I've seen the so I have pressure washed the traditional pool ones,
mhm,
where it's a big um plastic sheets on the roof or whatever like
yes,
that.
yes.
But the ones you're talking about is a little different.
Hmm.
But yeah, I've seen those on people's roof too. I've just never had a.
Yeah, no, the technology that we're being introduced to is still very early stage. But the thing is, we've only had about 10 years or so that the government and the private sector have really begun to invest heavily into renewable energy again. Because as you and I both know, uh, solar energy or renewables in general were typically frowned upon because a lot of lobbyists within the oil industry
Mhm,
they fought hard and they spent billions of dollars to stifle the growth and the development of this technology.
absolutely.
But I mean, if you can imagine, like the world is going to be a drastically different place in the next 100 years when we've really had a chance to expound upon those ideas. And now with the advent of artificial intelligence and machine learning, like we can model solar trackers and photovoltaic energy itself, and we can make things that are way more efficient and I mean, probably things that I can't even wrap my head around just yet, but it's definitely coming.
It's coming,
Hmm.
and I definitely want to. That's what I'm saying. I'm going to be on the forefront of the solar triangle loop on my end of the triangle,
Hmm.
um, on telling people, look, this is something that you just can't get around. Okay,
Yes.
um, why would you want to get around it? You
Hmm.
want the maximum efficiency for how these things can work how they're intended.
That's
Point
right.
blank. Period. That
That's
should be
right.
the end of the discussion.
I think one area that, and this is probably going to be a huge moneymaker for you in the future. So, like I was saying, I've invested some time into creating designs for both a solar heating and a cooling system.
Hmm.
And imagine this. Imagine in along the Sun Belt. Imagine along the equatorial line where you have countries that are historically really really hot. So you talk about Nigeria, Brazil, you name it, right? Like all of these countries that have an average of around 85 degrees Fahrenheit per year. Now, what if there was a technology that could you could deliver solar cooling to a household really cheaply? Now, naturally, that would change everything, right? But also, that would create that would be like a hundredfold increase on your business.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
if you're talking about a typical family in say a developing country that and this is tying in all of the other elements that I was just talking about before. So having startup companies that can produce solar panels at a cheaper cost,
Hmm.
being able to deliver those products and install them at a discounted rate, you're going to have a boom in the amount of people that are using these systems. But as a result, you're also going to need to clean them.
Absolutely.
So, with a solar air conditioning system, it uses solar energy to power an air conditioning unit.
Wow, that's life changing for them.
Yeah,
Not only they gonna have reliable power, but they got air. Oh
exactly.
my God! In
Also,
developing countries,
yeah, also solar refrigeration system. So being able to power refrigeration cycle and produce chilled ice or water, that changes everything.
just having one of the machines that produces water from the atmosphere, but
Yeah,
now they can power it now because they have renewable energy. It's just incredible.
that's right.
You know,
I also have some ideas for solar cooling towers. So being able to power a refrigeration cycle and produce cool water, and then use that cool water to cool a building or any other type of facility.
oh,
You
that's
know,
tough.
I mean, it's like imagine that we have this gigantic thermonuclear reactor in the sky and we're not doing the most to harness that power. To me, that's crazy.
That was the whole concept behind solar itself. Like we got
Yes,
the biggest generator that's producing. I don't know how much voltage of power, like hitting the earth at every. It's just crazy. Just like you said, it's just we have it there naturally.
so you're talking about solar irradiation, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, so I mean, it's usually. Let me think about it. I know this. It's the
I had it written down. It was some
yeah.
crazy amount of energy being
So
emitted
okay, I
by the
got it. I
sun.
remember now. It's 1,000 watts per meter squared per day. 1,000 watts per meter squared. So every meter squared, you're talking 1,000 watts of power that's just being dissipated into the atmosphere.
Just what?
Yeah, and then I mean, if you're talking in other arid regions like the desert, it's more like 4,000 watts of per meter squared per day.
Just imagine that. They don't need no nuclear. They don't need anything. They just need renewables that's going to be actually renewable. You know what I mean? At an affordable price.
Yes.
It's going to be life changing with the water systems. You bring in air and electricity and refrigeration to countries, and you know what I mean. What comes with that?
Mhm.
Wi-Fi and all this. Drastically changes the whole form of a country, an
Sure.
undeveloped country
Sure.
like that.
Yeah, no, and I think if we were if we were strictly to use solar energy, I believe that with the right push, we as and I'm talking about the United States, we could create a solar farm rather, and this would be the largest mega structure on Earth that would take up roughly around, I forget the estimation, but it's something like 200 miles, and that would power the entire United States from a single solar farm. And you're talking a landmass that has something what like 3 million square kilometers or something like that. It's something ridiculous.
Wow,
Yeah.
just
Um,
imagine that.
yeah.
And I would have the automatic cleaners that you know what I mean, on the each row thing, and just
I love how you keep going back to it. Yes, exactly.
I'm sorry, bro. I'm sorry. I think
No, no, it's
solar
good.
cleaning when I think solar. I'm sorry, brother.
Yeah, no,
Sorry.
I
But
think it's obviously a vital component because if they're not clean, they're not going to work.
they're not all these big companies. Look, they're not going to be hiring. There's other companies, big companies that do commercial jobs and stuff. Okay,
Hmm.
they're not going to be hiring these people and spending all that money if they did not need to be clean. Just think about that. I just keep telling people that. I
Hmm.
tell my regular residential clients. I said, the bigger the system, the more power they're losing.
Yes.
Okay, so these big megawatt systems and stuff, they're absolutely cleaning them. I've cleaned some. I know guys who clean them all the time, and I'm talking about now that big companies like Walmart, Target, and all these other people got their solar farms and solar
Sure.
carports and everything. It's a thing. Um, Nobody thinks about really the O&M.
That's
I know
right.
you called it something else. Nobody really takes that into account,
Hmm.
and it blows my mind. It really baffles me. I'm like, that should be baked in the entire loan, so that way
It's
it's
so
to
funny.
consumers.
I actually last year, about 5 months ago, I was absolutely harassed by a very large tech company. I'm not going to name them, but you know them, I know them, we all use them. And they wanted me to become their renewable energy manager. And I would basically have been in charge of creating a system and maintaining that, which would power a large chunk of all of their operations. So they're massive server farms that exist offsite, and a lot of their other facilities that have hybrid uses. I would have been responsible for that, and the technology that I've invented would have helped to really rein all of that home and to manage it. Um, but uh, right now, I think across the world, I was reading an article. It said that around 22.3 trillion kilowatt hours was consumed in, I think it was 2019. And if this is just me doing quick math, so if we assume that solar panels had an average efficiency of around 20%, that it would mean we would need to generate around 112 trillion kilowatt hours, or terawatts as they're called, um, of solar energy to meet. the entire yearly demand, which is absolutely possible.
with what we are currently producing now.
Yeah, yeah. From just from the amount of solar irradiation across the Earth and the amount of consumption. So there's more than enough solar energy to meet those requirements. But I guess you also have to factor in, like you said, the maintenance and the overall efficiency levels currently that we have of existing solar arrays. But then just kind of understanding like what the global demand would be. So obviously we would have to scale to meet that. There's no way we can do that now, but I would imagine we would probably need somewhere close to 1.5 billion new solar panels to get us to that level.
That's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, but it's possible. Like strictly from solar energy,
Strictly from solar, no wind, no
no
natural
geothermal.
gas, no
Yeah, no natural
geothermal.
gas. Exactly.
Strictly
I
from
mean,
solar.
it
I
really
mean,
it's just such a cool little thought experiment to think about. And I mean, who knows what this how this would play out in real life, but it's definitely possible. Solar energy does work, and it's been stifled for so long. But the proof is in the pudding, as they say. And I don't know if you've had a chance to check out any of my published works, but I actually did release the Q1 report from my virtual power plant nodes. Did you see that yet?
no, I didn't check it out yet. I'm
Oh
gonna check it
man,
out today.
yeah, you're gonna love it. So what we did is we focused on a couple of products, or excuse me, a couple of residential houses in Arizona, in Sedona, and we took some of those data sets that we pulled, those data points rather, and we pulled a couple of data sets from that, and you're able to see like how efficient the panels are, and how much sunlight they're getting, and what peak usage is, and so forth, and the estimated return on investment to the client every single day.
Nice.
So not just breaking it down, with smart metering, of course, from a monthly basis, but seeing what you're doing to the second.
To the second.
Yeah,
And seeing that, hey, if this thing drops below 10 to 12%, hey, it's time to get these things cleaned. Because
that's
a
right.
10-12% drop is substantial in your
Hmm.
solar panels.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, I've had people that went years in heavily polluted areas, and I'm talking about you wouldn't believe, and I've actually have um, photo pictures of before and after of their inverter,
I
their
saw.
output
Yep.
of how much it went up, and I'm like, look, you can't fake this stuff in
Hmm.
an hour cleaning. Um, how much it went up, in
Hmm.
production. These people went up 50%. How do you explain that?
That's crazy.
That's absolutely mind blowing that they went up 50% in production.
Now, just out of curiosity, the clients that you're talking about, do you know what type of panels they had?
Yes, they had a REC panels.
Okay.
Uh, the blue
So
REC
there were polys or monos?
polys.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yes. Um, and it was just I've had monos too, the black ones that
Hmm.
just that people don't see it. That's the thing about the black ones. People don't see the dirt on those really
Yeah.
as much as the blue ones. Like when the blue ones get really dirty,
Hmm.
they'll and you clean them, and I do the side by side pictures and stuff like that.
Yep.
It's just mind blowing. You
Oh,
know what I
absolutely.
mean? It's
Absolutely.
just
I
mind
mean,
blowing because they shine.
and you're talking about in with polycrystalline panels, the I think the level of efficiency is pretty low. It's only around 16 to 20%, if I'm not mistaken. And
Correct.
if those panels get dirty, that could substantially drop to, like you said, between 10 and 12%. And at that point, you're basically throwing money out the window.
You absolutely throwing money out the window. And the older, like I was trying to tell them, the older the system, the more important that that they need to be cleaned.
Hmm.
It's older technology. You
Yeah.
know, their the efficiency drops to the toilet.
Hmm.
So I just like I said, it's common sense. It's not so common.
But there's actually a couple of things that I wanted to talk to you about as well that really frustrate me, and I think we both are on the same accord of just how terrible energy regulation is across from a federal and a local standpoint.
Hmm.
In a place like where I live in Illinois, we are some of the most heavily red taped uh, areas on Earth, and not to mention we don't get that much sunlight as is. Like
Hmm.
the amount of annual sunshine that we receive pales in comparison to what you guys receive down in California or Florida or anywhere near near the Sun Belt.
Hmm.
And the idea that you're punishing people, or and that's been the case for a very long time, you're punishing people for trying to go green. It I don't understand it. I mean, like
It's
there's
them
always
holding on
going.
to the last bit of power.
Well, see, here's the thing. Yes, I understand where they're coming from, trying to maintain this archaic system, but there's always going to be money to be made because energy is only going to increase in demand.
Right.
So at that point, it really is a matter of how do we capitalize on this and eventually loosen our stronghold on that,
I
right?
mean, they're already trying to get around the curve. I've quoted on a few Edison, Southern California Edison solar farms
Hmm.
that they have, that they're, what I mean, got their own solar farms and selling the power back to people at a way higher rate, and I'm like, it's a lot of it is too, it's financing, people can't afford it.
Sure.
That's a big hump. um, and then people get stuck into leases or PPAs, purchasing power agreements,
Hmm.
and it's really not good because you're putting something on your home that you don't own, and they don't cover you for any kind of cleaning and stuff like that. It's just like when you lease a car, you don't. You're responsible, even though you don't own the car, for the oil changes and the maintenance and stuff like that. The
Right.
the cleaning, it's no different.
Yeah, yeah. But what's funny to me is, and I understand, it can be kind of complex. The regulation around renewable energy it, it understandably it's complicated, right? Because it does involve balancing the need to promote the development of those kind of sources of turning people into energy generators with the need to protect the environment and public interest. I get all that, but we need a reformation in regulatory bodies because not only are you losing out on money, but you're also losing out on opportunities to complete green bills. Like the I think when Trump came into office, that was the first time that we did not sign up for the Paris Accord or the Paris Peace Agreements. Do you know what I'm talking
Hmm.
about?
Yeah, yeah, he took us out of the Paris Accord.
Yes,
Yeah.
and you know, I guess on a higher level, it could just be fluff, and it could be that America is paying more than its fair share. But given that America consumes so much energy and so much resources, it really does make sense that we pay more. But I think that's of course beside the point that I'm trying to make. The issue that I'm having trouble understanding is why there isn't more um, unilateral agreement from the state level on just getting propagating rather the amount of solar energy or renewable energy devices that we have in the world.
I mean, you would think it would be beneficial, but I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist or anything,
Mm,
but I think that they already paid off. It starts
sure.
at the small municipalities.
Yeah,
Which
of course.
it really does start off at the city before you move up to the county and the
Hmm.
state, and it really starts at the bottom. So I mean, people have, like you said, they've used billions of dollars to make sure that it's washed down for as long as it did, but they couldn't stop it.
Hmm.
It's still, but look at how much they invested to try to. I mean, that's deep pockets.
Yeah, and then something else that I guess this is more comical than it is scary, but public resistance, right? So there was a story that I read a while ago. and a North Carolina town that rejected solar panels. Did you hear about that?
No, what?
So, and I'm going to paraphrase, but basically, a North Carolina town that rejected. They started on a solar farm, and they rejected that because they feared that the panels would disrupt the local ecosystem and that it would blot out the sun, and
Es-
and or no, not blot out the sun, but suck up all of the energy from the sun.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
um, you got to send me that. You have to send me that.
Sure.
That's a real. That's gonna go viral. I mean, like, did they really just do this?
Let me Google it right now, just so I can fact check myself. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, yeah, man. Because that's who who's
Okay,
running that show. Who's did it?
I'm on Snopes.com right now. So it says it's a mixture. Um, it says that they did reject the further installation of solar panels. I was right on the money. Some residents did fear that it would disrupt the local ecosystem, while many others worried property values would be affected. So what's false about that is it hinged solely or mostly on the dangers of solar panels sucking up all the energy from the sun. The Woodland Town Council rejected a proposal to rezone a section of land north of town um, to M2. I guess this is a manufacturing company or some type of zoning rather. Oh, it's a zoning. So from M2 from RA residential agriculture, essentially denying approval of a solar farm. Later in the meeting, the town council voted for a complete moratorium on solar panels. During the public comment period preceding the rezoning vote, citizens expressed distrust and fear of the solar panels. Mary
Just
Hobbs has been living in Woodland for 50 years and said she has watched it slowly become a ghost town with no more job opportunities for young people. She said her home is surrounded by solar farms and is no longer worth the value because of those facilities. What? That's
I guess
crazy.
so. I guess solar farms apparently bring down the property value. Apparently,
How
uh,
how?
how?
So if you're literally are producing energy cleanly, how could that possibly reduce the value of a home? If anything, that should increase it.
Yeah, they. I don't want to say anything, but I'm gonna go. That article is juicy.
Wait, hold on. I got one more. There was also another speaker, Jane Mann. She said she's a local native and is concerned about the plants that make the community beautiful. She is a retired Northampton science teacher and is concerned that photosynthesis, which depends upon sunlight, would not happen and would keep the plants from growing.
Wait,
What?
what?
She said she has observed areas near solar panels where the plants are brown and dead because they did not get enough sunlight. That's insane.
That's absolute. So the plants must be underneath the solar panels.
They would have to be underneath
There, that's
because
the only way
that's
they
the
would.
only way.
That's the only way that would happen.
Oh, wait, here's one more. One more.
Oh
She
my
also
god.
questioned the higher number of cancer deaths in the area, saying no one could tell her that solar panels didn't cause cancer.
No, no.
Goodness gracious,
Oh
people.
my god.
This
It
is
doesn't
why
give off no
public education is
radiation.
important.
Yes. God. Well, they'll teach them in school that it does. So I don't know. It doesn't give off no radiation. I'm sorry. I don't know how that would happen, but you know, I
Well, see,
digress.
here's the thing. Everything in nature gives off some form of radiation, right? Because radiation is essentially photons. But
Photons.
there are two forms of radiation, and there is an entire electromagnetic spectrum upon which that operates. So the amount of energy you have UVA, UVAVs, UVA, and UVB rays that are coming from the sun. Some of those are very harmful, right?
Yes.
But it's all upon. I mean, if you're going from like a flashlight to the sun, there's a lot of things in between, and then also like gamma radiation, right? Like gamma radiation is
Gamma.
is pretty dangerous.
That's what I mean.
S- You
Yep.
know,
radiate
Cosmic
stuff
radiation is dangerous,
dangerous.
but those are
Damn it.
particles.
Particle.
Those aren't just. It's not just photon energy. A lot of people they even equate cell phones rather, with being dangerous, and that's not true either. Like you could literally have a helmet of said cell phones attached to your head, and nothing would happen to you except you might feel a little warmth. But solar panels, cell phones are not dangerous, and I think the more public knowledge and awareness there is around these things, uh, the right people will be touched. Because obviously, there's always going to be, the tinfoil hat people out there. Um, but I mean, there's an amazing world, like and science is only going to continue to advance, and certain things may be proved wrong, but there are a number of constants as of right now, and solar panels aren't dangerous. And I
No.
guess that was my roundabout way of saying that we need more investment into just getting people to understand um, what they're what's going to help the world survive.
Yeah,
Now,
it's crazy. A
um,
crazy question I get asked all the time,
mhm.
which what they don't know, and I consider it crazy, but they don't know. They just because they don't have that education. They be like, "Hey, PJ, do we cut off the solar panels when we wash them? When you wash them?"
What
Yeah, they always ask that.
you said? Wait, are you saying
They want me to cut off the system.
no?
Yeah, yeah, and I said, "Well, why would I do that?" And it was
Uh,
like, "Well, because you're using water." And I'm like, it's crazy. It rains, doesn't it? And he was like, "Yeah," and I'm like, "Well, do you cut off your panels?" And they're like, "No." I'm like, "Yeah."
that's funny.
You'd be surprised. I get that question all the time, and it's just because it's the lack of education and the knowledge on it.
Yes,
They don't know. These people got these expensive investments on their home and don't
hmm
even know how to take care of them.
that's right.
It's
But
crazy.
I think also, not to take away from photovoltaics and the solar industry, but in order for the world to run fully on renewable energy, there has to be a diverse portfolio. It can't just
Absolutely.
be one.
Can't.
Uh, we have to learn how to harness and provide more channels for these energy generators across all of the physically viable solutions that we have. And you know intermittency is going to make all of this work.
Absolutely.
um, well, I think we've said a lot. uh, I do have some other things to get into this evening, but did you have anything else to say?
No, man, Dave, it was a great conversation. I learned a lot today, man.
Yeah.
Uh, you gave me you gave me some good idea for some content. Um, no, but just, man, mind blowing about the developing countries. That's really gonna stick with me.
Hmm.
Um, just the technology that they're doing, man. It's just, man, I gotta pick your brain, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, there's a lot of stuff that I didn't even know about. It's just like,
Hmm.
wow, I really haven't been on my stuff like I should, but that's just inspired me to just want to delve into it more and spread the knowledge, each one teach one.
Exactly. And to be frank, I don't think this is going to be the last conversation we have on Clubhouse, and obviously in person or just over the phone. So it's something
So,
that we have to continue, and eventually the right people will listen to this and be inspired by it, and hopefully follow us, and continue this this evangelization of renewable energy products.
it's
But
definitely needed, you know what I mean, and put some brown in it.
yes, I think the most important thing is that we just continue to pursue new education. Like I don't pretend to know everything. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm
definitely.
obsessed with what I do. And that's
Absolutely.
why I become a subject matter expert. But it does not mean that I'm the number one source. Don't always listen to me. Do your own research.
Absolutely.
Um, and I mean that goes for anyone. There's no empirical source anywhere. Like there are always going to be different viewpoints. Science is going to change. There's going to be new technological developments, etc. And it's up to all of us to educate ourselves and people like us who are agents in this race for renewable energy to just continue to become better, provide better quality products, and to get more of them out there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm excited.
Absolutely, I am too, brother Deshawn. I appreciate you, man.
Anytime, my
Um,
brother. Anytime.
where can people reach you?
They can go on my website, www.pjsolar.co, not .com, .co, or they can email me at pj@pjsolar.co, and or they can contact me directly to area code 760-590-8516. Just shoot me a text, and I'd love to help you.
Awesome. And I can be reached at luminaenergy.com. That's spelled LUMENA, energy, ENERGY.com. And at the time of this posting, I will also be launching my own personal branding website, davidnjones.com, which should be available within the next few days. So you can send me an email there at hello@davidnjones.com.
Awesome.
All right, guys, thank you very much. Brother
Thank you,
Deshawn,
Dave. Thank you.
thank you as
Thank you, bro. I
always,
appreciate you.
and talk to you soon, okay? All
All right, now.
right.